we have developed a plan for implementing the ideal situation in an elementary classroom. Using multiple researchers and educational theorists, we have designed a proactive plan addressing issues like classroom environment, student engagement, and dealing with misbehavior. To begin, Rachel will be discussing how the classroom affects students.
Our students will be grouped in fours based on the theorists of Kagan. These groups are purposeful and they are heterogeneous with gender and race, as well as academics. It's important to have low students, low middle students, high middle students, and high students all at the same grouping. This way it can ensure that when they're doing elbow partners or eye contact partners, they're always working with someone on their level. And that way they all get to participate in the learning. Using groups for seating, it allows good teamwork skills and positive race and gender relations in the classroom. Kagan also recommends changing out the groups every 6 weeks, so you're keeping it fresh and they always have to learn how to work with new people. Now you can see that there is a picture on the screen. As you walk into the door, the students will place all their belongings in the locker storage, and then they will take their seat in the classroom. Their desks are facing the smartboard so that it is facilitated towards learning and all the lessons taught. There is a teacher workspace that includes their desk and shelving behind for extra resources and any other supplies that they need to store. Teachers should set the example for organization. Next to the desk is the jelly bean table, as we like to call it. It's very convenient to have it next to the desk in case that you need any other supplies, and this is great for individualized instruction or any group time. In the back of the room, there's computer stations, and it's important that the teacher would be able to see the screens at all times so you can monitor what the students are doing. There's another group table back there for writer's workshop, and there's also a sink area to keep the room clean and to provide any first aid necessary in the room. The book area, where the library is located, is in the back of the room, far away from distractions, and nearby a window for natural lighting. This will give the room a positive, comfortable environment with the pillows and the couches along, so students can really feel at home and feel comfortable as they're reading books. The bookshelves are great for organization and teaching how to keep the books nice and organized.
In accordance with the classroom setup, we need to establish some rules and procedures in the classroom for students to follow. These rules and procedures should start from day one, just as Fred Jones suggests, so that students really get acquainted with what they will be doing in the classroom. They'll be set at the front of the room so all students can refer back to them as needed during the day, throughout the year, or any weeks that follow. The rules will be made with the entire class so that they all know what is expected of them. Procedures in the morning will be posted on the smartboard, and this should start immediately from day one. Other procedures will be instructed at day one, and students will practice a few days a week and for a few weeks until they have really maintained their efforts in following these procedures. Class jobs can be listed so that way all students know their responsibilities in the classroom, and we will also implement an Ask 3 Then Me rule as directed by a video Dr. Linston showed us in class. This will promote all students to ask 3 of their peers before coming to the teacher, so that way it doesn't distract you as you're doing group work, or maybe you're teaching a lesson and the students may have just kind of misplaced what they should be doing. As well as the Ask 3 Then Me, Class Dojo will be implemented in the classroom, and we will be rewarding students on a 1-point basis for every positive behavior that we see. With Class Dojo, we won't be giving them a point for maybe completing their work or anything that they really should be doing, because this is really about their behavior and how they've been managing their behavior in the classroom.
So along with rules and procedures, you also need to create a classroom climate. Morning meetings is a good thing to use when creating a good classroom environment. It develops community, it develops respect among the students, and it also creates a positive learning environment for the students. These morning meetings also help students develop relationships with other students, and it also provides the teacher time to develop individual relationships with the students. Barbara Colaroso's backbone teacher provides structure and support and helps students realize that they are unique. The background teacher also helps you to provide discipline and to see that the students have potential. Also, you need to allow the students to make mistakes and let them know that that's okay, that mistakes are fine. Use verbal praises and help them to better their choices in the classroom. When you create a classroom community, you also let them know that they're like a family and that you're all working towards the same goals, and it will help them to provide positive discussion and group work.
In order to maintain that community, we need to be proactive in our classroom management. The teacher must anticipate problems, have an eye on the class at all times, and be absolutely prepared for anything. This idea is most commonly referred to as with-itness by Jacob Kunin. Kunin says that with-itness is the idea of the teacher having eyes in the back of their heads and being aware of what is going on at all times. One practical way this can happen is for the teacher to be always out of her chair and during working, during student learning, and just being engaged with the students. So just as Dr. Lingston says, one teacher on her feet is worth more than 10 in their seats. Another way to monitor what students are doing is to be aware of what they're supposed to be doing, but also what could distract them. For example, if the teacher is doing guided reading groups, the teacher should be able to focus on that group at hand, but have expectations set for the other students and what they're supposed to be doing. So if the students are supposed to be doing literacy stations, the teacher should know what's expected, and the students should as well. The teacher should also be aware of how and why students could begin to get off task, and have something prepared for that, just in case. In order to help students stay on task, just as Becca said, we talk about the Ask 3 Then Me, and this promotes student self-management. Being able to self-manage helps students learn the social skill of being responsible for themselves and problem solving before asking the teacher. As teachers, we want to facilitate that learning, not just babysit them and always answering their questions. This reinforces those high expectations that we should have for our students.
Many problems in the classroom can be avoided by just keeping students on task and engaged. Many educational theorists like Alfie Kohn and Barbara Colaroso believe that students should be mentally active and engaged in order for the most learning to take place. According to Dr. Spencer Kagan, a well-renowned researcher, he says that engagement is why students report that they like school more, they like their teachers more, the academic content more, feel better about themselves, and then they're less disruptive in the classroom. Active student engagement gets straight to the root of the problem in many classrooms. Incorporating cooperative learning structures in lesson plans and then implementing them in the classroom can help keep your students actively engaged and on task. For example, using a peer coaching method called Rally Coach during a lesson on long division keeps both students engaged. One is coaching while the other one is working on the problem. This keeps both students occupied and actively learning during this math problem. At the beginning of the school year, like Becca said, the first 2 weeks should be spent setting up classroom procedures and expectations. The teacher should coach students in proper grade level behavior and help students realize the expectations that she has for them for the rest of the school year. It is the teacher's job to remain consistent through the learning of these expectations. For example, if a teacher says at the beginning of the year that there will be consequences given when the students talk in the hallway while they're in line, then the class should practice over and over again what that looks like, and the teacher should enforce those consequences if there's a breach in that rule. Students in general need to know that there are expectations that are held for them. Students should know that when they are not on task, it's the teacher's responsibility to remind them of their expectations. Developing private, student-specific signals can help keep even the most challenging students on task. When a student is off task, gently tapping on their desk or on their shoulder can help remind them of what they're supposed to be doing. When students are misbehaving, the teacher's proximity can also help limit the behavior. Conferencing one-on-one with students and giving them the opportunity to take responsibility of their behavior can also help. We agree with Barbara Colaroso and that students should take ownership of their behavior. Teachers should give them strategies on how to take control of that behavior, and then the student's dignity should always remain intact. Asking students guiding questions like, how do you think your behavior affects others? Or why do you think we have the rules that we do? Can help develop that self-management to prevent further problems in the classroom. Teachers should help students develop that intrinsic sense of motivation, a deep desire to learn and to succeed in school. Using extrinsic motivation Extrinsic motivators like Classroom Dojo with rewards like lunch with the teacher or a homework pass can help students if it's done correctly. Students should work hard and remain on task because it's expected of them. When students do well and behave, saying something like, "Your reward is a pat on the back and the feeling of a job well done," can help teach students that they should do it because they're supposed to and not because they're just going to get a reward.
Well, in accordance with Noor and her engagement and being on task, you also need to have motivation for your groups and managing your groups wisely. So Kuhn's theory has many points, and some of them are really good and useful in the classroom. The ripple effect is one of them. When the student is corrected, the other students will become more attentive to live up to your expectations. Also, for a well-managed group, you must prevent misbehavior. A teacher uses overlapping and withedness to manage that behavior, and this motivates students when one or more groups is happening in the classroom. So in a whole group setting, this would look like you would want to allow the students to be held accountable for doing their work. So a good example of this would be having them bring their whiteboards to the carpet and do word work, then dismissing them back to their desk by having them show the work on their boards. That's holding them accountable and making sure that they are doing what is expected of them. The students also need to feel included when they're placed in these groups. It's really good for you to have the students help you come up with classroom rules or a motto and allow them to know that you're a team and you're all working together towards the same goals. We implement this Kuhn's theory in our classrooms because it's backed by good research. And the overlapping and withedness need to really go together because when they're used together, it allows teachers to monitor the classroom and also focus on them individually. And we also need to be good multitaskers in the classroom, and we need to be attentive to everyone in the class at all times.
Good transitions are also very important in a classroom. The theorist Fred Jones stated that 50% of learning is wasted on disruptions, transitions, and getting class started. He believes, and so do we, that we should also have a classroom routine. So it's really important that our transitions are smooth and that students know where to go. For writer's workshop, for morning meeting, if we have a specific place for those, then they will automatically know, oh, it's time for writer's workshop, I need to go to this table, I need to go to this area. He also suggests that we do the say, see, do strategy at the beginning of the year to introduce transitions to our students. Clear communication and expectations must be used when you're talking about transitions so that the students know exactly what you want. And when you implement those transitions, we have to stick to it so that they always know what's going on and that they can trust you to follow through with what you said. Along with Fred Jones, we also believe that it's important for our students to be able to follow directions on their own. And that will occur when they know the transitions and our expectations. Because our students, we want them to be good citizens, and we are teaching them how to think.
So with incorporating transitions, we have to really establish the reasonable limits for classroom behavior, because none of the transitions, none of what we're talking about is going to work unless we have limits for this behavior that students will be showing us. So we've all talked about Barron, but there's one more thing that she said that really sticks out, and she talks about how teachers should work with students to develop inner discipline, which is behaving creatively, constructively, and responsibly without being directed. So we've all kind of talked about that already. The theorist Alfie Kohn explains that students, just like adults, make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I mean, all of us do. And mistakes are natural, and the best learning environment allows students to make these mistakes. Sam already touched on this a little bit, but in order to make mistakes, you have to really accept who you are as a person. Lastly, Fred Jones talks about teaching the students the meaning and value of discipline. So none of this could really take place without disciplining the students. Having students work in groups, like Sam said, helps really build community in the classroom, but teachers should establish the guidelines for these groups so that way no chit-chat or side-talking is happening and only discussion about the material is being held. Students who need to relocate to a different thinking spot, in the room should be allowed as long as specific guidelines and instructions have been in place. Lastly, setting class dojo in place really helps students to understand the behavior that they should be exemplifying in the classroom. So making sure to only reward on positive behavior and not on homework or classwork that we've talked about before is very important. In addition to setting limits for classroom behavior, we need to understand that there are comprehensive and detailed strategies for dealing with disruptive and non-compliant students. So we've talked about this a little bit, but another theorist to bring up would be the theorist Gano, and they stated that there is no such thing as an unacceptable child, but an unacceptable behavior, which is so true, because we don't want our students to really feel like we're pinpointing them as a student. We want them to understand that it's the behavior that is causing disruptions for their classmates and for us as the teacher. Fred Jones once again talks about working the crowd, meaning to move around the classroom, create that proximity, and a lot of them really need that. Finally, Lee and Marlene Cantor, they give specific instructions on dealing with misbehavior. We all know the teacher look, and using physical proximity, using the student's name, or maybe even praising a nearby student can really focus that disruptive student. And deal with it right now if it is absolutely serious. Another thing that they said is to express to students that what they're doing, once again, is the problem. It's causing a problem for you and the students around them. When you're correcting a student, you really need to make sure that you stay calm, you de-escalate the situation, you use one-to-one problem solving, and if it is really, really a big deal, you need to address it right then. When giving consequences, make sure you're consistent, just like Noor had said. Provide an escape mechanism, such as an alternative assignment, and give the offending student positive recognition as soon as the opportunity arises. This will make sure that we're really pinpointing the behavior and not the student.
Okay.
So finally, Dr. Langston explained that you're helping students to really respect authoritative figures in the classroom.
In order to really implement these things, we have to have those good relationships with parents and students and administration. Those relationships are of utmost importance when it comes to managing our classrooms. So students come from all sorts of different families and different backgrounds, and they all display different learning needs. These factors should influence the way in which we teach our students, but not necessarily how we treat them. We will not focus on labeling children because that can inhibit teacher creativity and perseverance, and also give them the impression that a student is a chronic failure. We believe that no matter what background, every student is capable of learning. And so just thinking about those families and all that is, in this ever-changing culture, students come from all sorts of different backgrounds and ethnicities, and as teachers we want to set up a culturally responsive classroom and celebrate those differences among students. We'll take time to study their backgrounds and celebrate the differences among students. And just understanding those families and the things that go along with that. We'll also try to celebrate those different traditions and teach our community of students to embrace each other for who they are. And also having a good relationship with those parents is important to serving the students to the best of our abilities. One thing we will strive to do is just to call each parent and give them a positive report every quarter. I think this is important because it helps students and parents to know that we're acknowledging each student for something positive that they have done. And this way parents, when they get calls from us, they are excited and they know that we genuinely care about their students.
With building relationships with students and parents, you also need to know how to properly handle negotiations and confrontations with respect. You need to know that, let the parent know that you have the student's best interests in mind, that you're both working towards the same goal. You need to feel safe in these confrontations. So if you feel as if your safety is at risk, you need to have an exit plan. Judy Berger gave a lot of great points when she came in and spoke with us. She said to stay calm and listen to the parents' concerns. Ask to take notes if you need to. That way you have everything that the parent is concerned with on paper. Apologize to the parents and students when necessary. When confronting and negotiating with students, you want to let them know that they have choices and that you expect them to take the right choice, that you have high expectations for these students, and you You don't really want to use sarcasm in the classroom. When you're addressing a situation, you want to speak to the student and use their name. That way you're showing care and concern and allowing the student to know that you are comfortable and that they're comfortable in the situation. And you don't want to yell because that's not going to create a good environment.
In conclusion, we believe that above all, that we should be student-centered and remain positive. We also realize that there are many facets of classroom management. As new teachers, we want to focus on a few aspects every year in order to continue improving our technique, as well as knowing that we must be lifelong learners ourselves in order to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.